The media have been leaked Russian secret documents showing the highly sensitive potential targets for Russian nuclear missiles, and most of them are in Germany. Let us take a look at Putin's targets in Germany, so you absolutely and definitely know where not to be if the major war starts. Let us go. Western media, especially German media, repeatedly emphasize that Russia is indeed on the verge of invading Europe and will therefore need to become war-ready, not capable of defense, but capable of war, says Pistorius. And that's why we now have the turning point with an extra 100 billion from Olaf Scholz. And of course, many billions of euros are flowing into Ukraine, because according to the Traffic Light Coalition, we are defending our freedom and our democracy there. And of course, that is absolutely the greatest nonsense, because the only thing we are defending in Ukraine are the geostrategic interests of the Americans. Nevertheless, the daily threat of war from Putin is brought to the attention of all Germans, especially in the Tagesschau, the Bild newspaper, Stern, Spiegel, and so on. And the latest climax is a Russian nuclear strike with devastating consequences, especially in Germany. The Bild newspaper wrote last night that Russian secret documents revealed Putin had nuclear strikes on Germany. Practiced. Remote tyrant Vladimir Putin has been building a nuclear threat against Germany and its Western allies long before the start of the Ukraine war. The leadership of the nuclear power Russia, which has the most nuclear warheads in its arsenal worldwide, threatens at every opportunity with nuclear strikes against all rivals who support Ukraine. How serious the threat is now shown by secret files that have been obtained and revealed by the Financial Times. As the British newspaper discusses, Russia has trained its fleet to attack locations deep in Europe with nuclear warheads in the event of a conflict. Even areas in the middle of Germany are identified as potential targets in the secret documents, such as these. Okay, so indeed Putin has trained his nuclear fleet to cover all of Europe with nuclear warheads. And to be completely honest, I'm not surprised at all whatsoever, because these missiles are not just some decorations, but they are meant to be used in certain specific scenarios, even if these scenarios are highly unlikely. Because if such missiles are indeed used, then things must really be hitting the fan seriously. Putin himself always says that he will never carry out a first strike and will only use these missiles if he indeed sees the existence of Russia as absolutely threatened. In fact, and in this case, he would have to act very, very quickly and precisely and would not have time to first select and analyze any targets. Putin has already identified all possible targets that would already pose a threat to him and to Russia. And these are primarily all the Western nuclear missiles, but also other long-range missiles. And the stupid thing is, we actually have a lot of them in our own country. Really, indeed, you see, of course not our own, but definitely those of the Americans. The Bild newspaper further wrote, "The secret files now published by Financial Dance were created by the Russian military between 2008 and 2014, so before the illegal annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine. 22. Especially, what Russia is indeed capable of transporting nuclear weapons on surface ships. What are surface ships anyway? Ships generally travel on the water, except for submarines. Well, whatever. This leads to an additional risk of escalation and accidents, because with the help of its maneuverable navy, Russia is capable of carrying out sudden and preemptive strikes and massive missile attacks from various directions, and that's exactly the main point. Russia has a significant number of mobile missile launchers, and only the Russians themselves know precisely where they are located. For example, the Russian nuclear submarines, and that's why it's not possible to carry out a preemptive strike against Russia's nuclear missiles to supposedly reduce the threat. In contrast to Germany, the exact locations of the nuclear missiles are known. Even Greenpeace writes on their website that the largest US special weapons depot outside the USA is in Missau. The airfields at Burchel and Nuremberg, as well as the US bases at Ramstein, have facilities to store US nuclear bombs and the necessary runways to deploy them. In Germany, however, almost everything related to the nuclear role is classified as secret. Information about how many nuclear bombs there are in Germany, how they are stored, and how they are to be deployed, all secret. Even inquiries from members of the Bundestag about the cost of a flight hour, how much practice is done, are all to be negotiated as classified information. In addition, Germany hosts the world's most important NATO and US Army facilities. Outside the USA, very important ones, NATO's airstrike planning is conducted from Ramstein, Kalkar and Oldham. NATO's Rapid Response Force is directed from Ulm, and here you can see the map, which, as reported by Bild Zeitung, shows the targets selected by Russia for nuclear attacks. In 2001, one would mention the Greater Hamburg and Lübeck area because there are very important ports for logistics there. The same applies to the Szczecin area. Then the Dresden area is also marked on the map, and of course Frankfurt and Wiesbaden because of all the military bases and the NATO headquarters. However, I assume that this map is not even remotely complete, as important ports like Bremerhaven and the government district in Berlin are missing, for example. Those are also potential targets. And besides, there are all the US bases like Ramstein, which are nuclear capable and thus a potential threat to Putin. So if you live in one of these regions in your area and then war breaks out with Russia and really significantly escalates, you should rather go to your relatives somewhere in the backwoods where there is absolutely nothing at all. Or better yet, start looking abroad to see if there are any interesting countries where you could take refuge in case of an emergency. Because you always have to say it's more important or better to have a plan B and not need it than to face an emergency and not have a plan B. For me, for example, that's also one of the reasons why I live in Costa Rica. The country feels like it's at the end of the world and is completely unimportant geostrategically. It is so unimportant that Costa Rica does not have its own army, so you are definitely safe here. And of course, one can also ask the question, how likely is it that Putin will actually attack and then actually drop the really big bombs? And I believe that this probability is quite low with Putin. Although he is extremely dangerous, he is not stupid. If it really escalates, it will indeed be because he was significantly provoked to the extreme by the West, or because some idiot unfortunately and unintentionally pressed the wrong button, triggering a potentially unintended chain reaction. And that's why it is now indeed even more important that we finally de-escalate and ensure peace in Europe. And we can all absolutely contribute significantly to this in the next elections. Definitely cast your vote for the party that does not engage in warmongering, but absolutely and genuinely indeed stands for peace and doesn't just talk about it.